Black-clad rebels only fight when nobody fights back. Dear black-clad rebels, it's Prince of Queens, and I'm here today to explain to you that I have your number, and your time is over. I have known you since before the World Trade Center Organization protests in Seattle. Thanks for getting me tear gassed with your stupidity, by the way. I have known you in college when you twisted my arm to get me to come to your ever so important activist meeting about how our university administration was allegedly trying to sabotage your activist group, which I could not even really figure out the purpose of. And when I asked you guys to provide me with evidence that the university was sabotaging your group, you yelled at me and told me to stop derailing the meeting that I didn't even want to attend. I have known you since my mid to late 20s in the Bay Area underground music and theater scene, where we actually had a lot of fun, unless I made the mistake of attempting to talk to you about politics. Most of you didn't have the foggiest idea about anything related to what you pretended to be standing for, but occasionally I would actually find myself talking to the anarchist or anarcho-communist or full-blown communist revolutionary that was actually writing the photocopied pamphlets that he or she would sell out of their backpacks for 50 cents at punk rock shows, protests, and food not bombs gatherings. These were usually people with meth problems and an additional addiction to reading Wikipedia about political theories that, again, they barely even understood themselves because they know basically nothing about economics besides buzzwords and phrases regarding the 1% and capitalism being based around debt and stuff. You've probably heard from these people before. You can find videos of them, it's easy. They proudly don't vote, don't watch news, and proudly pass out their propaganda pamphlets accusing people of being Nazis as if that has no repercussions. These people now call themselves Antifa commonly, and it's seemingly some sort of Frankenstein monster abomination of communism, intersectional feminism, and anarchy, from what I gather, though I can only assume it's far less organized than it sounds, judging by the people representing it. At the Milo Yiannopoulos protests in Seattle, I talked to one girl who was an organizer for the Antifa group. She started her conversation with me by telling me I was being hostile by asking the black-clad protesters questions on camera. Apparently, they weren't being hostile by attempting to shut down Milo's event, but I was being hostile by asking them questions. She agreed to talk just so long as I would put my camera down, so I obliged, and she went into a tirade of nonsensical justifications for trying to shut down the event, complete with claiming that Milo Yiannopoulos himself had been postering the University of Washington campus with Nazi posters the day before his lecture. Sure, I bet. These people are not political. They are not even rational. Of all of the contradictory ideologies under their belt that any individual identifies by, be it anarchist, communist, feminist, or what have you, the only thing they really have in common is that it is a social activity for them. They don't do it for any other reason than to feel like they have a purpose, and because protesting is fun for them. And why wouldn't it be? The people who get wrapped up into these types of social scenes are so fanatical in rhetoric that they push anybody with any sort of common sense outside of their periphery, and almost unanimously end up involved in protests where nobody is actually against them, aside from police officers, which they will promptly run from if the officers start exhibiting significant force, which again is fun for them just so long as they don't get hurt. And the officers know that currently they cannot hurt them, with the media climate being what it is. It's like a 14-year-old dealing with their 8-year-old cousin at a family picnic. The kid's mother is drinking and not keeping an eye on the brat, so he is doing everything he can to attack his older cousin. He's calling him every name he can think of, he's throwing balls at him when he isn't looking, and he's trying to punch him in the nuts and stuff. The older kid can't tell his cousin's parents because they don't view the small kid as a legitimate threat to the bigger kid, so they don't really punish him. But the bigger kid also knows that he can't actually defend himself against the little kid because if he hurt him, he'd get in a lot of trouble. And so he is trapped. Until one day, the little kid gets big enough and he finally smacks him across the face. That's the point I feel we're at right now with the Black Bloc Antifa idiots, and it's similar to Black Lives Matter where they're at, who are often one and the same, just so you know if you didn't know already. And don't forget, for some reason, they're all feminists. These are people who have never really encountered an angry mob that might hit them back. Only police that they drastically outnumber who can't hit them back. At the Milo protest in Seattle, I saw something astounding, which was hundreds of protesters, including a few dozen blackclads, making their usual fuss, mostly populated by white women because it was Seattle, and a few dudes who might start shoving on occasion, but almost never actually really throwing down if they were to get in a fight. They were doing what they were doing because they thought they would be in the majority. That Milo Yiannopoulos is literally a Nazi, and that this protest would go just like every other Black Lives Matter protest or anarcho-femic communist shindig they've been to over the past 5 years. What they didn't anticipate was that they would be up against an equal or bigger sized crowd of Milo fans who just wanted to get into the event and might actually defend themselves. It was a situation that was bound to get real ugly real quick, and I will be uploading my footage when I have time. There was some fighting, a bit of paint sacks thrown, some pepper spray. I heard reports of stun guns, and obviously there was the shooting. But it didn't turn into a full-blown riot. Why? Because the blackclads have never been in a situation where they knew that people might fight back. They are bullies, they are cowards, and you can see it when they try to fight people. They'll try to fight a man 5 or 6 on 1 in DC, covering their faces like they're some sort of criminal badasses, and then the second he fights back, they'll try to get the cops to arrest him. It's pathetic, and there's countless other stories I could add on to illustrate this point. You've probably heard about a number of them. More so, beyond knowing that these people are cowards because I have brushed shoulders with them for far too long, what I want these people to realize is that Milo fans and everyday conservatives are not the people to be afraid of. No, those are just the masses of Americans who would be perfectly happy for you to just go away. They want to be left alone. So just don't provoke them. You'll be fine. However, what I really want these blackclads to understand is that there are some truly scary people that are seeing this moment in culture as their time to form an army. And those people have been lurking in the shadows for longer than your movement has been alive. Probably longer than you have been alive. There are legit white supremacists out there, and anarcho-feminist Black Lives Matter idiots have been just the excuse they have been waiting for to declare war on somebody, but they are still waiting to strike back. These people are organized, and they know exactly what they are doing, and they know your collective mentality probably better than you do. They are happy you are making complete and utter asses out of yourselves, causing violence, and further fanaticizing your friend groups in what looks from the outside to be a deliberate attempt to rid all public sympathy from your quote-unquote movements. You've blocked enough traffic, smashed enough windows, beat up enough people who were outnumbered, shot and killed police officers, and defended people who tortured a mentally disabled young man for being white and broadcast it on the internet. Maybe nobody has told you, but unless you just quit with this fanaticism, there's going to be a moment when the vast majority of Americans just let you get what they feel is coming to you. And what that is won't be like you seem to imagine. It won't be a gang of stupid skinheads with baseball bats versus your mob of supporters that you assume will outnumber them so vastly. It won't be like some 90s movie where the gang of black guys fights the neo-Nazis and the neo-Nazis don't even land a single punch. That is a fantasy. And even if you have these neo-Nazis outnumbered 10 to 1 or 50 to 1, that's not how they'd fight you, because they have been preparing for this battle in a much different way than you have. The battle you are fighting is generally just a bunch of misplaced rage sparked by youthful misunderstandings of why the world might suck sometimes. The battle you fight against the cis-het white male patriarchy mostly exists in your head, and you wage it on people that will not fight back because they just want to live their lives. The battle the Nazis are fighting has to do with pure hatred from seeing all of you idiots act foolish all of these years, and they are just waiting for an excuse to fucking kill you. They have more guns than you. They have been studying your organizers since you foolishly published your hateful rhetoric all over the internet in plain sight over the past years when you thought you were unstoppable. Don't believe these people are organized? The guy who punched Richard Spencer already had his personal information released, and he was a black-clad. But good luck figuring out who did that to him. When the smoke clears and the police have to end it, you'll be lucky if you took out one of their snipers. And when the public looks on at the battle, they'll see a bunch of dumb kids who picked a fight they should have known they couldn't win, but did so because they had never been hit back in their entire lives. Unfortunately, the first time they might get hit back, they might just get hit with bullets. I am pleading with you not to let this happen. Drop me a comment and stay tuned.